Hello and welcome everyone to the program. I am Kayode Okikiolu, standing in for Shenwa Kimbaloye at Channels Television's global headquarters here in Lagos. Well, today is Easter Sunday across the country and the world over, with Christians celebrating the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, according to biblical account, there was a lot of politicking in the build-up to the crucifixion of Christ. Well, it's well over 2,000 years after that remarkable incident, and politics is still as vibrant. In fact, perhaps more complex. Well, that is why we're here to help you get a breakdown of the complexities just for you on the program. So let's get right into it, shall we? Well, before January the 11th, 2019, a number of Nigerians were not too familiar with the workings of the judiciary at the highest level in the country. But then things changed on that Saturday when news broke of a petition which was filed by a civil rights group against the then Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Ogunye. And the petition said he owns, and I quote, sundry accounts primarily funded through cash deposits made by himself, which appear to have been run in a manner inconsistent with financial transparency and the code of conduct for public officials. Well, simply put, they said he did not declare his assets. Well, things then moved in quick succession, and 3 months after he has been convicted by the Code of Conduct Tribunal, and an acting CJN, that's Justice Tanko Mohammed, has been appointed in his stead, but he has appealed that decision at the Court of Appeal. So now more than ever before, Nigerians are interested in understanding what exactly transpired and how it affects the administration of justice, separation of powers, and even the anti-corruption stance of the current administration. Well, tonight we get some answers to these issues, and to help us with this is a legal practitioner, Mr. Jiti Ogunye. He's also Channels Television's legal consultant. Thank you for joining us on the program, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, Mr. Ogunye, I'm very curious at this point. In your interactions with colleagues, other legal practitioners, I can imagine that their perspective will vary on this matter. Now, the question is, can you help us get a sense of the varying opinions you have gotten? Is there a consensus, or is it as varied as I can imagine?
Of course, as it was to be expected, there were varied opinions at the outset. But now one can say that there's an emerging consensus that it's best for the health of the judiciary that the former CJN be removed from the judiciary, either by way of resignation, by way of recommendation by the NJC, culminating in compulsory retirement, as it's been reportedly recommended, or sadly by way of removal from office, being barred from office, and forfeiture of certain assets which were allegedly not declared by the Code of Conduct Tribunal. In other words, we have those three dimensions now. Recommendation that it be compulsory retired by the NJC, is resignation from office, and now the verdict of the Code of Conduct Tribunal. And so one can say that there's a consensus of opinion in this matter at this stage. And Nigerians will observe that those who are most vociferous in condemning the administration at the outset, they have muffled voices now, understandably, be they in the political class or be they in the legal profession. So there's that consensus. In any case, why won't there be a consensus of opinion when the person concerned has tendered a resignation ahead of his retirement age? So that's significant. And so if there are people who are up in arms against his leaving, I think that they've dropped their weapons right now.
So do you think this matter is nearing its completion?
No, it's not nearing its conclusion. And I can predict that it will near a conclusion until we have a new National Assembly. And I can tell you why. If you look at the provisions of the Constitution, and these provisions are worded, they are couched to ensure that there's independence of the judiciary, that judicial officers have security of tenure, that they are not removable from office by an overbearing executive for good or for bad reasons, intervening in the judiciary and based on just whims and caprices, just intermeddling in the judiciary. So that's why these provisions are there. So to remove a CJN from office, a Chief Justice of Nigeria from office, going by the provision of sections of the Constitution, I'm talking about Section 292 of the Constitution, I'm talking about Section 157 of the Constitution, which provides that if any member of the executive body established by Section 153 of the Constitution is to be removed from office, and I'm talking about Section 157 as it relates to the National Judicial Council, of which Justice Onajen was a chairman. It could only be removed by recourse to a 2/3 concurring vote of the Senate. So if you look at what has happened, this just let's walk Nigerians through. For the recommendation made by the NJC, belated, if you ask me, because let's face it, we have issues with the Code of Conduct Tribunal intervention. But if the Code of Conduct Tribunal had not intervened at all, if the hands of the NJC had not been forced, the NJC wouldn't have acted. As a matter of fact, a meeting of the NJC, a regular meeting of the NJC that was supposed to have taken place on January the 15th, was postponed by the former CJN indefinitely. And so it was when the suspension came and a requisition of the meeting of the NJC by some members who were angry came that we then had that meeting holding, and then that led to a chain of events that culminated in what we just seen.
You bring in the NJC right now, and I'd like to quickly focus on the extension of Justice Tanko Muhammad's tenure. I mean, this news broke, I think, on Saturday, that there was a meeting on Thursday, and they eventually extended his tenure by 3 months. So what do you think this extension, since you brought up the issue of the NJC, what do you think this extension says about the position of the NJC, especially because the former CJN, Justice Onoge, actually appointed a lot of these members onto the NJC?
Yes, I will continue, and then that answer will just bubble up. So if you look at the recommendation, that recommendation, given the provision of the Constitution, has no chance of consummation unless the Senate concur by 2/3 majority votes. I mean, if the NJC makes a recommendation concerning the office of the CJN, the President acting alone as the head of the executive branch of government cannot accept that recommendation without recourse to the Senate. And so, in my view, why the executive had deliberately deterred and refused to act on that recommendation is because of the implication. Looking at the Senate that had just come out of an election, bitter members who are not returning there, and then the opposition party there, the disposition of the Senate President, the administration has no chance in hell that if the recommendation were to be passed to this Senate, they will secure a 2/3 majority concurrence vote. So what has the administration, in my view, done is to wait it out, wait till when you have
the ninth assembly,
a ninth assembly to do that. So that's as far as the recommendation goes. For the resignation, that the administration has also not done anything on, accepted one way or the other, because we're talking about 3 dimensions, resignation, recommendation, and all that. You see that the administration has not taken any step on the matter before this, verdict of the CCT also came. So for that resignation, if it were to be accepted, that would then not make recourse to the Senate necessary. There are people who are saying that, no, it's not only resignation. We must move beyond that and all that. And so you now have a CCT decision that is being appealed right now. So either way, you will need a new National Assembly to deal with that. Why? And that's why, in my view, the tenure of the current acting CJN had to be extended. Why? In the same vein, you will need a Senate to accept a recommendation of the NJC that a new CJN should emerge. Then looking at this Senate also. I'm talking about political considerations now that undergird all this. So invariably, therefore, I think that what is best, or what the administration thinks is best for it, is to extend the tenure for another 3 months, as recommended by the NJC, allow this to play itself out, and then when you have a new National Assembly that will be more amenable to what the administration wants to do, then we can have a new CJ.
Now, Mr. Ogunye, some governors, South governors, are asking the president to, as it were, ease this process for the CJ and like make it less embarrassing, if we can use that term. What is is there a way to go about this that will not be as embarrassing, if we can use that term, as this?
We are already embarrassed. There is no way you can imagine that things didn't happen. And for those who are saying that now, I think that they've lost the opportunity to say that. Look, it's a matter of conscience. It's a matter of morality. When you are confronted with allegations as weighty as that, and you are occupying such an important position, given the implications of those allegations that will be trashed out and all that, for the health of the judiciary and the institution, at the earliest opportunity, you throw in the towel. You tender your resignation, and then see whether you can save yourself and the judiciary from the public spectacle of being subjected to this kind of trial. But what did we have? Those who are making this recommendation now were the trumpet major, saying all sorts of things, politicizing the thing and all that. Yeah. And now they are the same persons now saying we should make it less embarrassing. What? It's already embarrassing.
So it's a little too late.
It's too late.
Okay, you talk about the judiciary as a whole. Now let's head to the Court of Appeal, where the former CJN has now filed 6 appeals relating to his trial at the CCT within the space of 3 months. Now, one of his lawyers is quoted as saying, out of the 6 appeals, 4 have been heard, but judgments have not been delivered, trying to say that this is taking too long. But then there's a provision in the Constitution that says, as far as it does not go beyond 3 months, it's still okay. But don't you think this talks about the adjudication process in the country? I mean, what does it say about it? Is it too slow?
No. In my view, it's not too slow.
Especially for a case with such magnitude.
Look, it's not too slow because there's equality of all before the law. And what we've seen in this country now is that those who are complaining that this is too slow, they may be in a hurry for a resolution. But they also know what is going on in this country now. I'm told that the Supreme Court now, 2021 dates are already being given.
Are booked already?
Yes, wow. Because the docket is full. Ordinary appeals suffer. And what are the appeals that are hard and determined? Political appeals, political cases, election petition cases, 180 days, 60 days. While, and I'm using my words advisedly, ordinary appeals of ordinary citizens languish in our courts. So those who are complaining now that this should be whatever, they cannot railroad the Court of Appeal into. They are also human beings. They are also entitled to be on holidays as everybody is on holidays now. It takes time to write judgments. And I'm saying this fairly. So they may be eager. They may think that this matter is very urgent for them. But the court has, the power to space its work in the interest of justice. Because what they are suggesting by saying is that, listen to us first, is that abandon other appeals that you may be determining. Those ones are not important to you. They are not important to justice administration. I beg to demur. I beg to differ from such a sentiment.
It would be hard to talk about this issue without bringing up the judiciary time and again, especially the adjudication process. I know you've talked at length about, alternatives to ensuring that this will be a process that will not really, that will favor most people, that will not take this long to achieve. So in your opinion, how can we ensure that the adjudication process, I'm not just talking about for political cases, I'm talking generally, that we can ensure that the load is reduced on the judiciary?
Look, let's be realistic. Nigeria is growing in size, in population. We are told that we're about 200 million people. So the judiciary of 1960, in terms of strength and capacity, its adjudicatory capacity, it's no longer good for the judiciary of this present time. And so we need to enhance the capacity of the judiciary. And I will speak about this broadly. Look at Lagos State. Lagos State does not need less than 200 judges, high court judges. I'm telling you, a judge has 700 cases, 800 cases. So how is he going to cope? And so what do we see? We now see the constriction of the advocacy space by regulations and by civil procedural rules, even for election petition determination, for those who are going to election petition. You don't have more than 5 minutes to cross-examine. You want to prove, you want to establish that the election was marred by malpractices under the relevant provision of the Electoral Act, and I'm talking about Section 138. 138, how are you going to prove that in a presidential election? When you are required by law, by the body of proof, to prove polling booth to polling booth that that's what has happened. So how are you going to lead evidence? So it is a rush job now. My view is that if you enhance the capacity, have more judges, have more courts, this can be resolved. Again, fundamentally, we need to think about re-federalizing our judiciary.
How do you mean?
Our judiciary is unitary, regardless of the fact that you can say you have Lagos State High Court, you have Oyo State High Court. This is how our judiciary is, this is how the structure of our judiciary is currently in a supposed federal state. You have a broad base. It's like a cone.
Okay.
And you have a very tiny summit. The zenith is very tiny. So cases snake their way from the High Court, sometimes from Magistrate Court to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal, it's Federal Court of many divisions, and to the one and only Supreme Court of Nigeria that can have up to 21 justices, but which since 1999 has never at any time had the full complement of justices as federal as the Supreme Court. It takes 5 of them to determine an ordinary appeal, and it takes 7 to determine an appeal, that has constitutional issues to be considered. So if you have that, how many panels are they going to have up there? They are human beings, and they are not young anymore. They are already, before you get to Supreme Court, you're either 60 or you are nearly 70 and all that. So they are overburdened.
So in essence,
you will need...
There needs to be a major reform.
A major reform. You have to re-federalize it. And re-federalizing will mean that you have maybe zonal court of appeal and so on and so forth that will exist side by side with the federal court of appeal that will take federal causes and matters, while the state court of appeal can take. I'm not the only one saying this. It's been said over and over. Indeed, about 3-4 years ago.
I just wonder that if this case had not come up, this huge CJN's case, if it had not come up, would we have been talking about reforms? But before you respond to that, we'll need to go on a quick break right now. And the 9th Assembly is upon us in a few weeks, that is. And as expected, moves are in top gear to decide who emerges as the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Assembly. Well, we'll take a look at the possibilities and hear from those who might have what you might call inside information. Join us again, everyone.